Let's get this sports podcast party started, all right?
The J Reels Podcast.
Why don't you wait until July 1st to make an announcement? What a disgrace. He can rack up all these numbers in October, November, and December, but what really counts is let me see this in January.
The sports rebel without a pause, delivering fast-paced, jam-packed sports talk like no other.
Listen, I gotta call it as I see it. He is not a good player. I'm sick and tired of having to deal with the disappointment of this franchise. When does it stop? And yes, another winter that I can sleep in peace. Coming correct, directed in full effect. Let's get it.
This is the J Reels Podcast. Welcome aboard.
What is happening, my good people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling fantastic, in excellent spirits. I know a bit of a late start, but have no fear. I have arrived to deliver all that's happening in the sports universe as we get that much closer to closing out the first half of 2026. As this is the J Reels Podcast with your host, J Reels. For my first timers, welcome aboard. And for those who've been banging with me going back to the very beginning, somewhere in the middle, or even as early as this past Monday, I welcome you guys and gals back. And there is a lot to uncover, especially when we get to the NBA. I will kick off with that. But for those who have seen the link, or for those who have seen the thumbnail about the New York Mets, I promise I'll get to them. And I feel like, what was it, 3 weeks ago here on the podcast, I said, I don't want to talk about this team anymore. I'm tired. I'm this, I'm that. But they find ways to reinvent failure, to reinvent losing. And at this point, I have no choice but to bring them up. But I'm going to put a pause on that because I want to get to a few other things before I even get to the Mets. And obviously, for those who are populating in the chat room and for those who are logged in, as always, I appreciate you guys and gals. And I'll get to your comments, obviously, later on at the back end of my whatever that's floating in my head, which is a lot. So you're definitely going to get a lot of passion coming through here over the next hour or so. So with that being said, with 21 people here representing, I appreciate you all. Thanks so much for stopping by. And I'm going to start off with the NBA, but I'm going to go backwards as I lace up my high tops. And what I mean by backwards is I'm not going to go to Monday night to deal with Giannis. And I'm sure if you've followed the channel, if you haven't, please subscribe. I would really appreciate that. Because if you want independent sports talk, true sports talk, without the clickbait, rage bait, none of that fluff, garbage, that artificial sweetener that you get in the back of your, you get that tingle in the back of your mouth, you're not going to get that. You're going to get, like as I said, sports talk the way it should be without any of the pomp and circumstance, all the nonsense that you may see on other channels. So that I can promise you. But I'm not going to go from Giannis all the way up to what happened earlier this morning. So I want to start off, like I said, in reverse. LaMelo Ball. Now, last night there were rumors about the Hornets looking, well, maybe not looking for offers, but listening to offers from other teams as far as trading their talented yet relatively erratic and even unhealthy, and I mean that from a physical sense, point guard. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, I said, now, why would they do that? Here's a team that got out of the gate sluggish as can be, looked like it was going to be another season from hell down in Charlotte, and they concluded their season 28-10, won a home playing game against the Heat before they got smoked in Orlando. And it looked like the skies were blue there in the Carolinas to the point where maybe, just maybe, this basketball team could rise slowly but surely in an East that maybe it's not right for the picking, but look what happened with the Knicks this year. Although there were expectations coming into the season and knowing that the Knicks were reloaded, but with a new coach and obviously the long drought, anything was possible. And it's not to say that the Hornets were going to be on the cusp or anywhere near the status of where the Knicks were coming into this season, going into 26-27. But when you have LaMelo Ball, when you have Colin Kneppel, when you have Brandon Miller, when you have guys like that, Miles Bridges, the other kid, Diabate. Listen, everything looked great if you're a Hornet fan, and we all know, dating back to the original Hornets with Alonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson, the head coach Alan Bristow, it was trying to even get even close to those days. And since then, we know that they left and went to New Orleans, and then they came back as the Bobcats, Emeka Okafor, Steven Jackson, and then now here they are with the Buzz City and the new iteration of the Hornets. Even with Michael Jordan being the man at the top of the food chain, they were unsuccessful until we got to past the halfway point of last year to where there was some success, and you thought, oh, wait, now we got something to hang our hats on and bank on. Well, to me, all that got flushed down the toilet this morning as the trade for LaMelo Ball to Minnesota for Naz Reid, and I believe Josh Green went to Minnesota as well, for Naz Reid and a bunch of draft picks, which I will dissect it this way. There has to be something going on inner workings, whether it's the front office to LaMelo Ball. I don't know if he's a bad teammate, good teammate, hot and cold. I have no clue. I'm sure in the days, weeks, and probably months to come, there may be a story or two that's going to leak where, yes, LaMelo Ball fell out of favor or he was expecting a big-time extension. Now, I believe he was eligible to get a 2-year, $119.2 million extension, which obviously is nothing to sneeze at. But it's not as if it was a situation where he was going into the last year of a contract that he wanted the sun, moon, stars, etc., and the organization balked at that and said, no, we got to get rid of and cut our losses here. I don't know. I can't explain it. So to me, I think the Hornets took a major step back. And we all know that those draft picks, and we know that there are pick swaps involved and it's all down the road. And Minnesota, you would expect them to be somewhere in the middle of the pack in the West. So it's not as if that draft pick is going to be a lottery or anywhere in decent shape for them to maybe get a good player, let alone a big-time player for that. And I just don't understand what the Hornets' thinking was here, trading LaMelo Ball. Now, listen, I'm not trying to make LaMelo Ball out to be Isaiah Thomas. All right? And I'm talking about Detroit Pistons Isaiah, not the later Isaiah, Sacramento, Boston, etc. But we know that there's a lot of style, maybe not too much substance. We know he's not a great defensive player. We know he's the type of kid that certainly has some long range and has some flair for the dramatic when it comes to his passing, etc. But we all know you got the good and you got the bad, and maybe a little bit of ugly when it comes to LaMelo Ball. But still, he's a young player, still growing, still learning. And to me, I can't answer it. I wish I could answer why the Hornets decided to make this trade. And here's the other thing, the flip side for Minnesota. All right, so you bring in a guy that's obviously going to be the point and run and gun with a backcourt mate like Anthony Edwards, who we all know, that's a guy's a top 10 player in the sport. But when you trade Naz Reid, who is a very good power forward and a player that is one that any team could certainly use, even a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I understand that they're deep and have a lot of players, but he would fit in nicely even to a championship caliber team like that. Please, the Celtics could use him. But my point is that so you trade away a guy like that where your front court is Jaden McDaniels, obviously a very good player, Rudy Gobert. Listen, is he getting a little long in the tooth? We understand that even on his worst day, he's still better than a lot of players in the league defensively, but we all know Gobert, not a big-time offensive player, and maybe slowing down a little bit on the defensive side, and not much else. And with Ball, you got to wonder whether or not getting traded, is that a good thing for him? Did he want out of Charlotte? Who knows? Or was it a situation where the front office said, we don't want to deal with this kid anymore, so let's ship him to a place where he's going to hate it? Well, listen, Minnesota, who wants to be in Minnesota? No offense to my guy Headstyle in Minneapolis or anybody that lives in the beautiful state of Minnesota. But yeah, November through April could be brutal. And who knows if LaMelo Ball is going to look at that and say, oh, geez, the first chance I can get out of here, I'm going to do so. So you got conflicting issues on both sides, whether you're a Hornet fan thinking, wait a minute, what the hell just happened? And then the T-Wolves are going to look at it and say, all right, we got LaMelo Ball, but we don't have much else. They traded Julius Randle to the Nets, which I could talk about a little bit later. And I understand they got back Nico Claxton. No, I guess he went to the Bulls. It was a 3-team deal. And they got picks. And even though they did sign Ayo the Sunmu, I can't pronounce these names, people, half the time. He got a 5-year, $112 million extension, who had that big playoff game. I believe it was against the Spurs. Is that in the Spurs series? I think the day that got ejected, that's when the Sun Moon had that 43-point barrage. All right, so they gave him all the money on one game, and maybe that was a precursor to know that we needed to keep this guy on our team in order to bring in a guy like LaMelo Ball to fortify that roster a little bit. And listen, you have to say right now, the T-Wolves, did they win that deal? I guess we have to wait and see because, again, there's a situation where, yeah, they upgraded offensively and they got a guy who's going to run the point, et cetera, but A, can he stay healthy? I know last year he played in 72 games, but look at his track record prior to that. Number one. And number two, what was the real reason why they traded him? Because if it was an attitude problem on LaMelo Ball, I don't know if the father got involved. We know the father has kind of chilled out ever since Lonzo, and sad for him how his career has pivoted. And LiAngelo never made it to the league. And LaMelo is pretty much the only one that has actually made his bones in the league. But I don't know. Please, I want answers. And I don't know what is happening there with that Charlotte team. And I do see the comments. I'll get to those comments, I promise. On the back end, my regulars know the deal. So, very puzzling trade. I was even surprised they were shopping him in the first place. We haven't heard from the Hornet GM. We haven't heard from the head coach, Charles Lee. I don't know. And it's the Hornets I'm talking about. So, and they're not going to tell you that much. What are they going to do? They're going to dog the guy on his way out, or obviously in flight to Minnesota, they're going to say, oh, yeah, we didn't like his work ethic. Oh, he can't stay healthy. I mean, I don't know. Hey, we saw what happened with the Luka situation where the higher-ups thought that, oh, he's smoking hookah too much and drinking beer and he's not in shape. At least we had an idea as to why. Now, we all know how dumb that trade was, but we found out, okay, I still wouldn't have made the trade, but there's your reason. What's the reason here? So I don't get it. So that's the deal with LaMelo Ball and the trade. So hopefully we'll get some answers to that, as I mentioned, in due time. Now with the draft, last night you had the second round, and let's face it, you had a million trades. I know Isaiah Stewart from the Pistons, he got traded, and we could spend the entire podcast talking about that, but obviously I won't do that. But as far as the draft overall, I'm not surprised by anything that happened except for one in the first round. I don't understand why the Brooklyn Nets didn't take the kid from Arkansas, Darius Acuff Jr. I mean, what were they thinking? And there's no knock on Mikal Brown from Louisville. Now, I understand he's got 2 inches on Acuff, and they're the same weight at 190. Excuse me. But for the Nets, who need in the worst way a player that the fan base, the 30 of them that are out there, especially now with the Knicks winning a championship, the Nets, forget about them being in the pecking order of New York. They're not even on the map. And a guy like Acuff at least will raise the eyebrow of the Net fan and say, all right, yeah, this kid, Arkansas, John Calipari coached him. He had a couple of big games in the tournament. Yeah, that's a guy that I'll go out and buy the jersey for, and maybe he'll stay here for 10 years and then he won't leave via free agency, etc. Where Mikal Brown, all right, who knows? We got to wait and see how he's going to develop, how he's going to play. Obviously, it's a big program, but to me, they dropped the ball on that. And they bring in Randall. And listen, we know Randall is a guy that the ball sticks to him. Good offensive player. He's been in the league a long time. And obviously knows New York, considering he was here for 5 years before he got traded in the Karl-Anthony Towns deal. But, yeah, now we know Randall, it's going to be his team. And I'm sure he's going to dance to his own drum. Not that he's going to be disruptive or anything like that. But, you know, is he going to really listen to a young coach like Jordi Fernandez and have a feel to where he's going to buy in and think that this team is going to make strides this year and maybe try to get to 30 wins and then obviously they have a ton of draft capital moving forward? I don't know. Randall's a guy that I'm sure he would like to play for a contender, a team that's looking to win a championship, as opposed to going back to New York, but obviously on the other side of the bridge to where, yeah, he's just going to be collecting his paycheck and going home, and that's it. So to me, that was the one big surprise. But other than that, you know, the Bants are going first and Peterson. And I know Peterson's using that as a tool of motivation. And let's face it, I mean, it was just one pick. I mean, would he have liked to have been the number one overall here in the 2026 draft class? Yeah, I would think so. Well, it's not as if he dropped the 7th or 8th. But, hey, use that as it, you know, to his advantage. Fantastic. So that I can't knock. We know Cameron Boozer there in Memphis. Caleb Wilson, a lot of ties there with the Bulls. He was a Bull fan growing up. Favorite player, Michael Jordan, says he even wants to be better than Mike, which obviously, I mean, and I heard the interviews and watched them saying that, hey, you got to dream big. And you know what? That is the ultimate dream. If he could be half of what Michael Jordan is, Chicago got themselves a star. But we'll see. Obviously, from North Carolina, we know the ties with Jordan, the Bulls, etc. So we'll see how that goes. Now, I'm not going to go through every pick, people, but as we move it along, Keaton Wagler to the Clippers. So you got a wonder there. A backcourt with he and Darius Garland. Then we talked about the aforementioned Brown and Acuff. Yeah, as I move it down, Morris Johnson was very, I don't want to say surprising, maybe a little bit of a reach. I understand the connection, Dusty May, Morris Johnson, big man there in Michigan. They won a title together last year, but maybe it was a situation where he wanted to bring in somebody that not only was he familiar with, somebody with size. They're going to need a lot of size, obviously, to play the likes of the Thunder as well as the Spurs, even more importantly. And even though they had bigs, Derek Lively, PJ Washington, but those guys have been injury prone. And maybe by bringing in Johnson, we'll kind of blend in with those guys and see what they could do to try to stack themselves defensively against the likes of OKC and San Antonio. And speaking of OKC, how do you not like what they did there with their picks at 12 and 17 with Ade Mara, again from Michigan? We know he's a big body, wider body than Chet Holmgren. So who knows if that means Holmgren's on his way out. Now, that's a contract that's going to be tough to move. He signed close to a max deal. What do you get? 4 years, well over $200 and some odd million. So that's going to be a tough sell for any team that's going to want to try to procure him, even though he has size. He can shoot the three, can defend. But we saw what happened in that in that San Antonio series, especially at the back end. And then right before that, you had Yaxel Lendenborg, another Michigan guy, go to Golden State. The other pick that they got was Bennett Sturts from Iowa, who was in that trade there with Memphis. So obviously that was one of their picks that they had dating back years ago. So now you have another guy that could be a part of their offense, a guy that could come off the bench, work with SGA, and certainly just blend in as opposed to having to be the guy. And that's the beauty of Sam Presti and what he does with these deals. He'll bring in guys that have played in big-time programs, and next thing you know, they'll flourish in a system with a coach that's won a championship and players that know how to win, and all you can expect is for them to flourish. So you have that. I know the Spurs with Jaden Quaintance bringing in a big forward there from Kentucky, who I know a lot of people thought, including my guy Bio from LA, thought that maybe the Lakers would draft him to bring in another body, play defense. Obviously, in that Western Conference, we know who plays out there, the two aforementioned teams. You also have Denver with Jokic, et cetera. And then you had also right after that, Kareem Lopez, who is on Memphis. That was the Piston pick, but was traded to the Grizzlies. First player ever drafted from the country of Mexico. Kid has tremendous upside, not a big-time shooter, but certainly a playmaker, long, and I'm curious to see how he'll perform here in the league. And as you move it down along, Tarris Reed will reconnect there with Stephon Castle in San Antonio. And, that was pretty much Alex Caravan, another UConn player who's now in Sacramento. And Koa Pete, who also traded to Phoenix, the kid there from Arizona, who now is with the Suns as they get some size there. And in the second round, listen, I know that the Nets, again, I don't know if they had this affinity with the guards, and I get it. They want to try to either play small or play fast or play quick, but they drafted the kid from Duke, Isaiah Evans, but that's another guard that you're going to add to their team to go on top of Mikal Brown, to go on top of the 4 of the 5 guys they drafted in the first 2 rounds last year have been guards. And, I don't know what Sean Marks is doing. I mean, this isn't a situation where, like the NFL, you're going for speed over size, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And here it is. They got a lot of guards, maybe a lot of quickness, but certainly not a lot of size. So we'll see how that pans out for them. The one kid that I had my eye on that I was looking at was Jacoby Gillespie, who was drafted by the Spurs. So talk about a guy that's going to fit in there. Who knows how that could play out, considering that they already have Dylan Harper. They already have Stephon Castle. Who knows what they're going to do with the Aaron Fox. As you know, his extension starts to kick in this coming year, 4 years at $222 million. So good luck for any team trying to acquire him, because after what they saw in the finals, I wouldn't have done that either. And also the Nets, they did draft a forward close to home to my guy Bio out there in the West Coast. I know for those who are listening on Apple or Spotify, like, who's this Bio, Jay Reels? What are you talking about? Biography? Biohazard? No, that's a nickname of my guy. I'll give him a shout out, Bruce Gonzalez, who's a huge LA across the board and UCLA, but Tyler Bilodeau, who was injured going into the tournament. So maybe that would be a significant upgrade considering Nick Claxton obviously got traded here just recently. And yeah, nothing else really that sticks out to me in my eyes for the rest of the second round. I know the kid from North Carolina got drafted by the Clippers, but got sent to Atlanta, the Henry Vassar. But besides that, there's not a name out there that I'm going to look at and say, oh, yeah, at the bottom of the draft, Trey Kaufman-Renn, who was on Purdue, who is more of a defensive player from what I gather. Yeah, I didn't say he could contribute offensively, but he's a big guy, 6'9", 240. So who knows what that's going to mean for the T-Wolves. Yeah, because again, when you look at the list of where these guys have come from, and here it is, from San Antonio via Indianapolis or Indiana. So that's what you got there with the draft. Nothing else really sticks out from that regard as far as players that will find out, sleepers, more so second round or those late first rounders, how they perform. And we know the summer league's in a couple of weeks, so we'll get to wait and see what's going to happen there. But before I turn my attention to the hockey and other things, a couple other basketball notes I want to get to. And there were a couple of signings. I know Trae Young re-upped in the nation's capital. If he could stay healthy to go along with A.J. DeBonsa, so you have DeBonsa, Trae Young, as well as Anthony Davis. If Young and Davis stay healthy and you put in DeBonsa there, could you have a decent team? Maybe. And decent, probably a play-in. But you know what? If you're the Wizards, you'll take a play-in because you have not sniffed the playoffs. And I believe the last time you were even close to the playoff was that play-in in 2021, I believe, when the Celtics actually played them in a play-in scenario. So we'll obviously see what's going to happen with that, with the Bonsa and the two other aforementioned. But Young signs the extension, and you figure that even though he opted out, but the Wizards, come on, you're not going to make that type of trade and then just say sayonara. So Young stays in the fold there. You also have Portland, who hired Micah Nori, the former Minnesota assistant coach, and I believe there's some rumblings there about how that was handled, but obviously I'm not going to get into that. Nori, who I know the Knicks even tried to go after once they let Tom Thibodeau let loose, and then they had tried to interview Chris Finch, the head coach, and then they went to Micah Nori and said no thanks. So obviously he goes to Portland, where the former Portland coach, Thiago Splitter, the former Spur, is now in Chicago. And now let me get to the two other things, or three things. I'll start with Becky Hammon, and then I'll get to Jaylen Brown and Giannis. So Becky Hammon apologized towards Brunson for those comments. Obviously didn't apologize for making those comments. And she's absolutely right. Why should she apologize? Because I didn't hear any of the, talking heads out there when Jalen Brunson first signed with the Knicks back in 2022 that they applauded that signing by Leon Rose and company. Not one person. And yeah, people thought, all right, nice signing, all right, complimentary player, but he's not the guy that's going to lead us to a championship. So it's all right for them to say that and maybe not use Jalen Brunson's height or size to not necessarily disparage him or his play, but Becky Hammon was just coming out stating a fact. All right, Isaiah Thomas did win a couple of finals back in the late 80s, early 90s. And yes, Steph Curry in 06-3, but generally a player like that, a la Allen Iverson, they're not going to deliver an NBA title. And for the most part, she was right until what we saw here. So I can't kill Becky Hammon. There's still certain people, even players, this is what you get, Becky. Who gives her a microphone, so on and so forth. Becky Hammon is noted in not only just women's basketball, but basketball overall. I could see it was just some hack out there that was just trying to make a stupid statement for clicks or whatever, but I mean, come on. Becky Hammon doesn't have to take a backseat to anybody. And listen, I don't have the pom-poms out for her. I'm not a fan. I mean, listen, I respect her and definitely respect her resume and her acumen, etc. But it's not like I'm on the payroll or, she's a long-lost relative. So I don't want people to think, whoa, how's J. Reels defending her? I just look at it from the standpoint of so many of her counterparts, male counterparts, that have, let's just say, I'm not going to say destroyed the deal or destroyed the signing. Let's say critiqued it and criticized it enough to not be in favor of it. Or to think that, all right, good signing, but really, Jalen Brunson? Like, this is supposed to be the guy that's going to help us get to where we need to be as an organization? Those guys need to eat crow before Becky Hammon does. But, of course, she says that and everybody gets in an uproar. So that's number one. Number two, the situation with Jaylen Brown, and now obviously I'll end with Giannis. We know that Jaylen Brown was used. I won't say used, that's strong. Jaylen Brown was part of a small package that the Celtics were looking to put forth to acquire Giannis Antetokounmpo from Milwaukee. It was he and 2 future first-round picks, where the Bucks said, we're going to take the Heat offer, which was maybe not much more as far as draft picks are concerned, but as far as players, the players that they got in that deal can't even morph into Jaylen Brown. Let's call it as we see it. But I understand why they took that deal, because there were more draft picks on the table, and rightfully so. So I get that. And we'll talk about Giannis in a moment. But as far as Jaylen Brown goes, and I mentioned this yesterday on my live stream, every Wednesday, 12 noon Eastern time. I even mentioned this on my pop-up live. You want to call it an emergency one there on Tuesday. But here's what I'll say about Brown and his future in Boston. I think it's come to a point where it's maybe not beyond irreparable, but maybe it's time to move on. And I don't say that as a lifelong Celtic fan to be like, yeah, let's just trade him like that. I mean, what are you going to do? I understand that Brad Stevens came out and was very diplomatic, saying that, hey, I can't predict the future, and hey, he's still part of our team. And he said all the right things, and obviously he's not going to disparage Jaylen Brown by any stretch. But you would have to think that because of what has transpired here, and then you're still seeing reports as early as this morning that the Celtics are still looking for suitors for Jaylen Brown. To me, the writing is on the wall. Have they even had a conversation? As you saw, I don't know if you guys and gals got a chance to see this, but Jaylen Brown, I believe, is in France. He may be in Paris, where he's maybe doing some sort of promotional tour, who knows, but made some comments towards Stephen A. Smith and ESPN and the people who maybe not run First Take or whatever. But so it's not as if the Celtics have had any face-to-face, or maybe it hasn't been a conversation. Has it even been a FaceTime, a phone call? Who knows? To the point where the damage control has begun after the deal was consummated between Miami and Milwaukee. I'd have to think right now that's not the case, because if they're still looking for suitors for Jaylen Brown, they're ready to jump ship. And if that's the case, that's fine. As I said yesterday, if there is ever a time to trade, and I understand it's dangerous because they already won a title, they've had a lot of success with Jaylen Brown, second team All-NBA, we know his credentials, etc. But now is the time to trade him. He's not going to get any better. He may get a little bit better the next couple of years, or he may have numbers that are comparable to what we've seen this past year. But if you're willing to get whatever haul that you could get for Jaylen Brown, which may not be the same case for Milwaukee when they traded Giannis, well, let's say they traded him before last year or even 2 years ago, they would have gotten the sun, moon, stars in the entire universe. And maybe the Celtics could get that now, knowing that for Jaylen Brown at the peak of his powers, now's the time to get as much as we can. And you know what? As a Celtic fan, I am all for it. It'd be tough to see him go. It'd be tough to not have him part of the mix. We'll know that that's Jason Tatum's team. And I think a lot of people, majority, whether Celtic fans, NBA fans, basketball fans, I'm sure they felt that this was always Jason Tatum's team. And maybe because of the comments that Jaylen Brown said right after their loss to the Sixers, and talking about it was his favorite season and yada, 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 and so on and so forth, that maybe it's time for him to be a Batman somewhere and not a Robin. That's it. So let's see what happens with that. And as far as Giannis goes, here's the thing I'm going to say. Are the Heat better today than they were 3 days ago? Yes. Are they title contenders as of right this second? They are not. And I understand they have a little bit of a veteran nucleus there with Andrew Wiggins, with Bam Adebayo, and they have to re-sign Norman Powell if they want to bring him back into the fold. Davion Mitchell, nice player, but obviously he's not going to do as much as Giannis or even Bam for that matter. But how I look at it is that they don't have a point guard. They don't have a good shooter, let alone a big-time shooter. So to me, in order for them to get to that next level, they got to bring those type of players in. But here's the thing. Bam is making max money. Giannis could get an extension, which the Heat are going to have to pony up for. And are they going to re-sign Norman Powell? But at what cost? Because of the second apron. And maybe the Heat, they're going to say, to hell with it. We'll go past the second apron. We're going to put all our chips in the middle of the table to hope to get a championship out of it. And if we don't, then they're going to be in purgatory as they have been over the last 3 years, considering that they've been a play-in team. And I understand they went to a final 3 years ago, but that was 3 years, not just last year. And now it's a scenario where if they do not come correct and build this team to the point where they're going to battle for championships and not just get into the top 6 of the Eastern Conference or to get to a conference final. No, this is for all the marbles. And if they're not going to complement Giannis with that point guard or with that scorer, then why did Giannis go there? Wasn't his point to get out of Milwaukee to be on a team that was going to contend for a championship, not just to get in the playoffs? And then as far as the Bucks are concerned, Tyler Hero's a nice player, good player. And they also get Bobby Portis, too, the Heat, in that deal. And Portis is more of a glue guy, physical, rugged player. So you're not going to expect much offensively out of him. But as far as the Bucks and what they got, all right, Tyler Hero, and to me, a bunch of picks after that. Kyle Ware, young player, has to grow, a little raw. Is he going to be, I don't know, close to an all-star? Who knows? And I get it that Milwaukee had to do something. And to me, that trade was more about the picks. It wasn't about the players because they're building for down the road. And they're going to be an awful team next year. I mean, that's all there is to it. So for Giannis, how I look at it is short term, obviously that trade benefits the Heat, but isn't it all about winning a championship? So to me, I don't look at them as a favorite to come out of the East or one of the top 2 or 3 teams even come out of the East right now. You still have to think the Knicks. You could argue the Celtics. Now, we'll see how that's going to shake down here with Jaylen Brown, you would think, in the days and weeks to come, being jettisoned out of Boston. People are going to pick Cleveland. I won't. Detroit. Now, listen, Miami's going to be in that mix, but are they going to be a team that's going to win anywhere between 52 to 56 games next year? Right now, I can't see that. Yeah, maybe high 40s. Ceiling right now, if they get to 52, I'd be shocked. But if they put out numbers for Vegas next year, and if this was already late September, their number right now would probably be 45 to 46 and a half. They're not a 52, 53 win team, not in my eyes, even with Giannis there. And, of course, the last big thing about that, we don't know about his health. So that's what we got with the NBA. I know a lot of NBA there. There's still a few things I need to get to. And I know Ron Man, the Chosen, the Bucks won that. Sorry. All right. Becky Ham Sandwich. All right. Coming out with comments like that. Well, listen. You could say it's foolish. All right, but what about all the other people? The Colin Cowers, the Stephen A's, the Jim Romes. Now, I don't know exactly what they said, but I'm sure they probably looked at that like, oh, Brunson signs with the Knicks. What? That's supposed to be blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So you know what? If you're going to kill Becky Hammond, you got to kill everybody else too. That's my point. So that's what we got there. And let me move it along here. I want to get to the hockey because the NHL draft is tomorrow as I lace up my skates, and then I'll get to the baseball, and then I'll get to the World Cup before I get to your comments. So for those who are hopping on board now, first time here, I appreciate you stopping by. This is true independent sports talk without the clickbait, rage bait, fluff that you may see on other channels. You're not going to get that here. I promise you that. So again, I do appreciate you taking out precious time out of your day to watch and listen to what it is I have to say in regards to what's happening in sports. All right, Ron, man, I'll get to your comment there in a little bit there. I know you and Val B going back and forth. But as far as the NHL goes, there's been a lot of wheeling and dealing here, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the one thing I'm a little bit surprised about heading into the draft tomorrow, which is going to be in Buffalo, and Buffalo's been wheeling and dealing here. Alex Tuck with the Capitals and Bowen Byram and all that. So, yeah, hang tight for that. But I have to start off with this draft tomorrow. Now, listen, the NHL draft isn't like the NBA or the NFL, where there's buzz, there's hype. Now, there may be that generational player that comes out or players that at the top of the draft that people wonder, oh, what's going to happen? But it doesn't have the sizzle. It doesn't have the intrigue. It doesn't have any of that, unless it's a situation where you do have that generational player that comes out like, but again, you know that Edmonton's taking Connor McDavid. You know that the San Jose Sharks are taking Macklin Celebrini. Now, a lot of people thought last year, Matthew Schaefer, he was a lock to go there, but there were a couple other players too. But this year, you have a kid that's coming out from Penn State who was all the rage prior to last year in a one Gavin McKenna, where he's 19 years old and could be another one of these guys. And I'll go recent, whether it's Connor Bedard, whether it's Macklin Celebrini. I know I'm missing another one. I'm not going as far back as Connor McDavid. I mean, that's 2015, people. It's 11 years, and we know how great McDavid is. But the recent ilk of number one picks here in the draft, you want to go Matthew Schaefer? All right, he's a defenseman, though, but we saw the record-setting year that he had last year for the Islanders. A lot of people think he could be that guy. Or you want to even say Alexis Lafreniere from the Rangers in 2020, where all the rage was about that kid coming out saying, oh, man, he's going to be the next big player. And he's been anything but that. Let's face it. It's had moments, but please, who would you rather start a team today, Celebrini or Lafreniere? Case closed. But as far as this Gavin McKenna kid, a lot of people think that he's going to be all that, then some, and a bag of chips. But have you heard anything about this kid here over the last, forget about 24 hours, over the last 2 minutes? And understand right now it's about the NBA and getting ready for free agency, and you have the World Cup, and there's a lot of other things to distract ourselves as far as sports goes. But for a kid that has had a lot of hype and promise, and with the Maple Leafs having the first pick overall, which they haven't had since Austin Matthews. I believe it was Austin Matthews, right? 2016, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 14. I think back on that. But here's a situation where this kid over the last year was known more for an incident off the ice, getting into a scuffle with fans, which he got released from, all this alleged, and no criminal charges, no felony charges, nothing like that. But what it sounded like was a scuffle with other fans that he got involved, and I guess his friends were involved. But it was much ado about nothing because, again, it's not as if anything came out of that to where he had to do time or there was a probation deal or whatever it was, or he got suspended. Nothing to that ilk. But for someone, and I understand it's hockey, it's not as if Bryce Harper's coming out as a can't-miss guy out of Las Vegas, Nevada as the number one pick. Or many moons ago, A-Rod or someone like that. Or LeBron James coming into the NBA being that next big guy. Or if you don't even want to say Victor Wembanyama, although his approval rating right now has gone down a little bit. But a lot of people thought McKenna was going to be that guy, and I haven't heard a peep. Is he even going to get drafted? Is he even declared for the draft? I don't even know. But no, I'm sure that's the case, unless something happens over the course of the next 24 hours where you're just going to say, oh, no, what's going on in the McKenna camp where he's not coming out or what have you. So that's the one thing I want to start off with. But the other, and look at this here, I'm seeing a lot of things here. I mentioned about the Capitals. The trade that they had there was a sign and trade for Alex Tuck, who had a big year and a renaissance there up in Buffalo, where he goes to Washington. I believe it was 8 years, $89 million or whatever. If you do the math, they do this by averaging $10.5 million a year. So it's going to be more than that. And the thing is, he's from Western New York, but I guess, hey, he wanted to test the waters, free agency, and that was his right. So he did that. And obviously he's going to go to Washington to see what they could do to kind of get themselves back. Remember last year, They faltered there down the stretch. The year before, they had the top seed in the East before they got ousted in the postseason. So with that, and then also with the trade for Bowen Byram, the defenseman from Chicago, as they are trying to retool here and try to get themselves in a situation where they obviously want to keep a core of this team, considering they made it to the playoffs for the first time in a decade and a half. But now's not the time to have all these wholesale changes. And listen, I get it. When you have guys like Alex Tuch, who is going to be a free agent, and you're not going to be able to re-sign him, obviously you got to kind of go on the fly as to which direction you're going to pivot. So obviously bringing in Bowen Byram was a big one. And then now they also sign, let me just make sure I get this right. They signed Zach Benson, who was one guy that they knew that they had to make sure that they kept and avoided him being or becoming a restricted free agent. So he re-ups for $52.5 million. And this is what I mean. Young kid, up and coming, want to keep that young core intact. I know Tucker's, 30 years of age, so obviously he'd been there a long time. It was time for him to move on to greener pastures in his eyes. But they are certainly trying to do what they can to keep that good feeling going. Yes, they got ousted in the second round. They lost a tough Game 7 of Montreal in their building, but that's a stepping stone. And hopefully by them trying to maneuver here and keep their fan base at bay, because obviously they don't want this to be a thing where, oh, we had this one big year and then all of a sudden we're going to start going backwards. Not the case. So you had that going on there in Buffalo. So not only just with the draft being there, but they've certainly been big time wheeling and dealing there with the Sabre organization. The Panthers, they bring in Garnet Hathaway from the Flyers. And remember, they just traded for Brady Tkachuk to go alongside with his brother Matthew down there. And they're certainly not resting on any laurels, considering that they had a down year, ton of injuries. But considering they had that 3 straight years of getting to a Stanley Cup final and winning the back 2 years, and this past year was just a complete washout, which, hey, listen, I said this after they beat Edmonton, check those receipts, last summer, and not that I'm going out on a limb, but I said that there's no way they're going back to a cup final. They're not going 4 straight years. And listen, they didn't even make the playoffs. But just because of that, it doesn't mean like, all right, well, we won our 2 cups now, let's just take it easy. No, they bring in Brady Tkachuk. They know they're going to get Alexander Barkov back. Now they bring in Garnet Hathaway to bring some toughness. So they're not certainly sitting on their hands and watching the NHL go right in front of them. Now, you also had, the Senators also landed William Eklund with San Jose in exchange for the 9th pick in the draft. Now, the Edmonton Oilers, they finally secured the head coaching position. Mike Babcock, the former Red Wing coach who won in Detroit back in 2008. And I know that was messy there. The league had investigated Babcock a couple of years back in reference to a situation regarding phones and pictures and invasion of privacy, things of that nature. I don't think it was anything lewd or lascivious or crude or anything like that, but I guess it was just one of those things where he was just being a jerk. Like if somebody had pictures on their phone, oh, let me see those, and he's grabbing people's phones and looking through it. It's stuff like that, where the behavior for a guy that's leading your team was certainly uncalled for. And even Gary Bettman came out and said, yes, it has to be a level of decorum. And I'm sure throughout the last couple of weeks where Babcock was rumored to be the head coach of the Oilers, and knowing that, wait, they have to vet this as smooth as possible. Because think about it. Recently you had, well, most recently, over the last few years, the whole situation with Joe Quenneville when he got hired in Florida to be the Panther coach, but then all that came out about what happened in Chicago with the alleged sexual misconduct there with the assistant coaches. I believe the trainer was involved with one of the former players. And then that jettisoned Quenneville out of Florida before he resurfaced in Anaheim, as you know, this past year. So the NHL had to certainly do their due diligence in order to make sure that if Babcock's coming back, that he has to be 100%, maybe not clean, but everything has to be swept across the board to not have any of this stuff resurface as coach of the Oilers. And we know that right now, I would think, has to be the most pressure-packed job in the sport. I get it. You have the Rangers. You have the original 6 teams, Boston, Toronto. You could argue whether or not Toronto's first because they haven't won a cup in forever. But considering that Babcock, who, like I said, won a Stanley Cup, and knowing that they have this window with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl signed long-term, so he's there for years, where McDavid is there for the next 2 years. And who knows? Babcock, I watched some of the clippings of the press conference. He came out and said that, yeah, I have to have a level of accountability for myself and for my team. And based on what he was told to by McDavid, Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, they'll say, yeah, lead us. We need for you to be that guy that's going to take us to where we want to go. That there are no shortcuts. Yeah, we got to put in the work. Everybody has to be man for man, accountable. And listen, if you're an Oiler fan, you like what you hear. And to me, that is a fascinating scenario because with McDavid, I believe he turns 30 next year in January, still at the peak of his powers, but he's had a taste of what it's like to play in a Stanley Cup final. He's got to win one. He's going to end up becoming similar to what we saw there with Alexander Ovechkin, where I understand he never made it to a cup until he got 2-1 against the Golden Knights and then won one. But Ovechkin being that great player that hasn't won, blah, blah, blah. Well, McDavid has that mantle right now, and that's a mantle that he wants to jump off it and into the top of that Stanley Cup full of champagne. But we'll see what's going to happen there. But that's your NHL. And listen, again, with a lot of these players that are going to get drafted, I'm not going to sit here and fake the funk to tell you, oh, watch out for this kid or this kid's a sleeper. Listen, the NHL, similar to baseball, even in that regard, where the baseball draft is usually the Sunday before home run derby and the All-Star game. Yeah, there may be a couple of guys that are on people's radars, just like Gavin McKenna, where you're going to think, oh, wow, this kid could go number 1. Or we knew even a couple of years back with Paul Skeens coming out of LSU, oh, Pirates are definitely going to pick him. And some of the ones I mentioned, whether it's Bryce Harper, you want to go Steven Strasburg, a lot of these kids that were number 1. And now, with the draft tomorrow, we'll see where these players fall. And if I hear anything that's of note, especially when it comes to trades, we'll talk about it on Monday's podcast. But that's what we have there with the NHL. Let me see what we got here. I'll get to the comments, as you know. Let me pivot and put on the cleats. Let me make sure I got everything NHL. I think I do. You know what? Before I even do that, my apologies. So here are the players that are going to be enshrined in Toronto Hall of Fame. And I'll talk more about this maybe on Monday because I want to get to the baseball and a couple of things and then get your comments. Keith Tkachuk, obviously the dad of Matthew and Brady. Patrice Bergeron, the former Boston Bruin, been there forever, won 1 million Selke awards for best defensive forward. Carey Price, a longtime Montreal Canadian goalie, very good goalie. I believe backstopped them to that 2020 Cup run during COVID. Pekka Rinne, the goaltender from the Nashville Predators, had a wonderful career. Is he a Hall of Famer? I don't know. I have to look deeper into the numbers, but I wanted to put that out there because then on Monday, I want to revisit this. I can see Bergeron, yes. Now, I know Bergeron may not kill you with black type and big-time stats in that regard, but when you win 6 defensive forwards and have been on that team for a long time, won a Stanley Cup, throw that in the mix. You know what? That's worthy of being in the Hall of Fame. And you know me, I'm a small guy room. I'm not one of those to be, oh, let's just pull everybody in, the Hall of Very Good. And Keith Tkachuk had a very good career. Winnipeg Jets. Believe played with the St. Louis Blues too later on. Carey Price is very good. I don't know how many Vezinas he won, and maybe Pekka Rinne's won. Listen, if they won at least 2, that will go a long way. But yeah, I'll talk more about that on Monday. I want to pivot to the baseball. I know for weeks on end, I've said I'm not going to talk about this team. I'm tired of bringing it up. I've bored, especially those, my diehards, and they know, and they're going to be like, oh boy, here we go. Jay Reels is going to be on that soapbox for this damn Met team again. So you know how I feel across the board. You do. And for those that don't, give me 30 seconds. I want the GM, David Stearns, out. The owner, Steve Cohen, is a fraud. The manager, I understand this is not all his fault, but something's got to give. Something, anything at this point. When you look to see what has transpired over the last 5 days, and after they beat the Braves 2 out of 3 a couple weeks ago, shocker. I mean, think about that. And they won in San Diego. They won 2 out of 3 out there too. Where this organization, I wasn't going to talk about them until they got to 500. Then we could speak. But because Steve Cohen was courtside 2 weeks ago at Madison Square Garden at the NBA Finals, the epic Game 4, the classic that everybody will remember forever. And I was pissed off. The next day I came on here and I railed at Steve Cohen and all the deals that he didn't do, that whatever, so on and so forth. Well, now let me just break this down for you. And if this isn't an exclamation point as a lifelong Met fan, I don't know what is. Here's a team over the last 5 games. After winning game 1 in Philadelphia, had a rain out there. Oh, they didn't have a rain out. My apologies. Last Thursday, they played in Philadelphia, won. The next day, they were off because of the World Cup game in Philly. And then Saturday, you had Freddie Peralta on the mound. And you guys know how I feel about Freddie Peralta, who only in an inning in the third gave up 10 earned runs. The next day, they lose 6-2. All right, lose the series. That's it. After a rainout on Monday, they played Tuesday night. They lose 10-3. Yesterday, they had to play a day-night doubleheader to make up for the game on Monday. Mets jump out to a 3-0 lead. I'm doing live stream. Nolan McLean was moving along. 4 innings. I think they gave him 1 walk, or 1 hit, a walk, and it struck out 6. And I'm like, all right, Nolan McLean, here we go. Next thing you know, the game's tied. Next thing you know, they're down 6-3. Next thing you know, they end up losing. And it was a disaster. In fact, I take that back. Tuesday night, they lost 9-6. Yesterday, they lost 10-3, the first game. And then you have the second game where not only the Mets cannot get out of their own way, but they might as well have me play first base. Second, short. By the way, Francisco Lindor's first game back after the calf strain where, oh, by the way, he booted the ball. And although we're seen talking to Juan Soto in the dugout for an extended period of time, they were shoulder to shoulder, looked like they were having not an animated conversation, but nonetheless having a conversation about something. So to me, that's a decent sign considering that there's been so many reports about them not liking each other. They can't get along. There's no chemistry with those 2 guys, whatever. So now you have a situation where last night's game, the infield, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 errors. I got to take this from my guy, and this is a nickname, Fuqua, known as now Waffle Iron Whale. He's one of my guys here, which I love. I love the guy. He came out and said, and I'm stealing this from him, David Stern's objective in the offseason wasn't run prevention because, we can't sign Pete Alonso, and I'm going to get to that in a second. We can't sign Pete Alonso because we're not going to invest 5 years, $150 million for a guy that's going to be in his mid to late 30s to where he's not a good first baseman, and we want to try to prevent runs, so therefore we're bringing in Jorge Polanco. But no, instead, Mark Vientos is there because Jorge Polanco has been hurt and has not played. And, oh, by the way, 2 years, $40 million, where Alonso's played every game, and he has 18 homers, 54 RBIs, and is batting over 250. Let me throw that in, but I'm still not done with Alonso. So now you have a situation where it's not run prevention anymore. We've been fooled. David Stern should have said win prevention because that's what this has become. I mean, this is just a flat-out farce with this organization, with this team, with the players, everything. And now 2 other things, 3 things. Number 1, Dansby Swanson, shortstop. In fact, it was, I believe, former number 1 overall, Arizona Diamondbacks many years ago. Did you know that he came into this series? And remember, he was a big-time free agent, left Atlanta, went to Chicago, I believe 7 years, $170 million, whatever it was. He was batting 178 going into this series. Do you know what he's batting right now? He's over the Mendoza line. He's batting 202. Why? He's only hit 3 home runs and count them, 5, 10, 15 RBIs in the 3 games. He's got a month full of RBIs in half a week. Can you even make that up? I mean, he had 7 RBIs in game 1. He had a 3-run home in a grand slam. He had 4 RBIs in a game in the nightcap, and he had 4 RBIs on Tuesday night. What's he going to do for an encore? He'll probably get 5 RBIs, get 20 RBIs in 4 games. And now he's probably going to end up leaving town batting close to 210. And he's going to be wishing, hey, can we play all our games here? That's number one. Number two, even the broadcasters, Gary Cohen, who I love, Ron Darling, through the roof. Even he came out, and I'm paraphrasing, he said that everybody from the very top all the way down to the bottom has to be held accountable or has to look in the mirror somewhere along those lines. And that's what I love about them, because they call it like they see it, similar to what it is that I do here. And that was just to hear that, not only does it make you cringe, and not because of what Darling said, it cringe because it's the truth. But here's the sad part about it, which is kind of like a 2A to this, and I'll get to my third point. The 2A is that David Stearns 2 days ago in his little State of the Union came out and said, and I'm paraphrasing, and I know you guys and gals who are on now, you heard this yesterday, but just hear it one more time, I'll be brief, where David Stearns said, we believe in the guys in the locker room. Yeah, it hasn't gone the way we have. Yes, has it been frustrating? Yes, has it been tough? Yeah, but you know what? Even Steve Cohen, the owner, is behind us, blah, blah, blah. Are you really trying to sell that to your fan base? And one more time, I understand you're not going to destroy your team or destroy your choices, heaven forbid, or put a cloud over the organization by saying, yeah, we suck. We've been awful. We've been this. All right, I get that. But can there be a little bit of accountability? And that's why I think Darling made that statement, because to me, that was more directed at Stearns than it was anybody else. Because Stearns could have started that press conference by saying, I need to be better. I thought that the pieces in place here were going to be enough. I understand we've had injuries, but every team has injuries. It hasn't panned out. And I have to look in the mirror. I have to figure this out. I have to be better. The owner is aware of that. The manager, that's it. Listen, does that erase everything that has happened here in the first 80 games of the season? As they're now 34 and 46, and if they lose tonight, they're going to be 13 games on the 500? And nobody expected that in their right frame of mind? No, but by making things all coconuts and palm trees, confetti and rainbow, it's this, and oh, shucks, it's that. And you know what? If it wasn't for... Stop. And this is a guy that lived in Queens near Shea Stadium, and he's trying to sell this to us? Get this guy out of here. Out, out, out. I didn't want to see his face. I had enough of this guy 2 months ago. Imagine after listening to that and then watching this putrid ball club. And I haven't got to my last point, and then I'll pivot. So Devin Williams was on the mound last night. And listen, you know how I feel about Devin Williams. I'm sure he's a nice guy. And listen, I know he's trying. I know. Listen, do you think he wants to have a 5 ERA? And of course not. But Devin Williams is out there. And for whatever the reason, while he's on the mound, and I don't know if the fans directed this toward him, or maybe they were trying to direct it towards the suite of Steve Cohen. Who knows if he's in the building? I don't know. Maybe he's hanging out with James Dolan somewhere, celebrating the Knicks title. And I got news for you. Speaking of which, real quick, now that the Knicks are over, forget about it. That spotlight is beaming on Citi Field in Flushing, Queens, because now they don't have the Knicks to hang that. It's not as if the Knicks could be the distraction to everybody in New York. The only games in town are in the Bronx and in Queens. And the team in the Bronx is playing well, and they do not have their best player. While what is happening out in Queens, it's just a flat-out disaster. But with that being said, So the crowd, for whatever the reason, I don't know why they picked that moment, whatever, but now they're chanting, Pete Alonso. Now, are they saying that to mock towards Devin Williams? If that's the case, and I don't know if that is, but if that's the case, that's not right. I don't like that. They should have chatted Pete Alonso in the first game of the doubleheader, or even after Vientos booted that ball from first base all the way to, I think it was Corona, Queens. They should have been chanting that. And here's my point about Carlos Mendoza. You want to blame Carlos Mendoza? Where are you going to put Vientos? I guess you're going to put him at first base. Well, he can't play first base anymore. That's it. Like I said, you might as well have me play first base at this point. But the crowd chanting Pete Alonso, if that's not two middle fingers to Steve Cohen and David Stearns, and even more the reason to get this guy packed up, I'll go to Citi Field right now, pack up his stuff, and drive his ass out of town. I don't care if he still has an apartment in New York, which I'm sure he does, or maybe in his parents' bedroom there in Queens. I'll drive his ass right there, and he could just stay there, lock him in the room, and he could play Stratomatic and do whatever, because I've had enough. All right, that's my rant. I know you hear a long pause there for those who are listening, probably saying, oh, did somebody pull the plug on Jay Reels or whatever? I'm just can't make it up. All right. Oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, this isn't a rant, but I just thought of. So the Mets, and I even mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, maybe as recent as Monday or whatever. The Mets traded their left-handed pitcher, Dave Peterson, to the Cubs. And he pitched on Sunday. Thank God. Imagine if he was going to pitch today. And maybe the Cubs will probably say, you know what? Can you pitch on 3 days rest? He'll go out there 5 innings. He'll have an economical 58 pitches. He'll give up no runs, strike out 12, and give up a hit. No walks, and the Mets get swept by the Cubs. That would be fitting. But, yeah, he gets traded, and, you know. Oh, what a disaster. What a disaster. Kodai Senga to the bullpen. All right, 2 other notes for baseball, and I'll go through the schedule. Yeah, Ohtani now 8-2, but here's the thing. I was looking this up because we know his numbers are off the charts, and I know there was a mix-up there with he and Dalton rushing the catcher, and I know his ERA went up yesterday. Well, it went up a little bit. It was below 1. Now I think it's in the 1.5s. It's going to be interesting to see how this Cy Young race develops, because when you look at 2 other pitchers in particular, who obviously they're going to be gunning for each other all summer long. The kid in Milwaukee, Jacob Misiorowski, and Christopher Sanchez of Philadelphia. Those 3 teams are going to be gunning to see who are going to get the top 2 spots in the NL. And right now, those are your 3 favorites to win the Cy Young. So if there's going to be any compelling or riveting race for an award this coming postseason, it is that one. So I'm putting that on your radar now, because we know Ohtani, I'm sure that's the one thing that's probably missing from his not only resume, but on top of his trophy case, where he's got a million of them. But one thing he doesn't have, besides the World Series hardware, he doesn't have a World Series MVP yet, but besides the World Series hardware and the MVPs and things of that nature, is a Cy Young. So keep that in mind as we move it along. As the Dodgers swept the Twins, no shock there. He is now 8-2, and the Dodgers are dominating right now, as we'll get to in a moment. And then, to me, this thing with Jazz Chisholm, I don't know, all these people are posting online or whatever. Oh, what is he doing, blah, blah. Is it a bad optic in this day and age? Yes, it is. You don't want to see a player out there sucking a lollipop, and it's not as if he's like ready. You just see him there, like between pitches, like taking it out of his mouth. He's looking at Anthony Volpe. Obviously, it's not a good look. But am I going to kill him for that? Now, I will say this. I know Aaron Boone came out and says, he doesn't like that. And maybe he talked to him and said, hey, don't go out there and do that, which he shouldn't. And let's be honest, God forbid, there's a pop-up and he's trying to track it down and he can't yell, I got it. Or heaven forbid, he tries to do that and it goes halfway down his throat and he gags on it. Or worse, he has to make a diving play. And because he dove, the freaking lollipop is stuck in his esophagus. I mean, you definitely don't want that. But I saw him with the lollipop. I'm like, oh, how dare he? What is he doing? We saw UL Washington, that old Royal shortstop with the toothpick. And I get it's a toothpick. It's just barely sticking out of his mouth. And that's still dangerous when you think about it too. But it's not a lollipop stick where obviously it's in broad daylight. You could see it. But I didn't make a big deal. So many other people, oh, look at this. You got to fine him. What? People chew tobacco. People sunflower seeds and all that in their mouth, and they still make diving plays, whatever. A lollipop stick's a little bit different. I get it, but come on. I'm not going to get crazy over that. All right, let's look at the schedule here for the weekend in baseball. I know the Mets host the Phillies this weekend. Listen, if they get embarrassed again today, like I said, they're giving them 50 runs. If they end up at the end of this homestand, if they end up giving anywhere with 70 and 80 runs, who survives? What is Steve Cohen doing? That's why he's a fraud. Does he have to be George Steinbrenner 2.0? No. But do you just pull a Homer Simpson behind if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify? Please. But your baseball schedule is as follows. Today, Seattle, Pittsburgh going on now. Athletic, San Francisco. Yeah, I'll look at the games more tomorrow. I know Texas and Toronto, a 4-gamer there. And then, so funny, I just think about Texas when they just finished playing the Marlins. And the Marlins are now 42-39. They're 3 over 500. This is a team that you can't pick out of a lineup. But if I were to ask you right now, who is the leading hitter in baseball? You could take 100 guesses before you fall on Otto Lopez. He of the Miami Marlins, who's batting .340. And the Mets are where they are. Anyway. Let's see. Cincinnati at Pittsburgh, Houston, Detroit. That's a 4-game series in the Motor City. Washington at Baltimore. There's your Beltway series. Arizona at Tampa. Yankees, Red Sox. Seattle, Cleveland. Kansas City, Chicago. Chicago, Milwaukee. Cubs, Brewers. So there you go there. Rivals. Colorado, Minnesota. Miami at St. Louis. Athletics at the Angels. LA, San Diego, there's one. But the thing is, the Dodgers have a zillion game lead right now. Atlanta, San Francisco, those are your games. And funny enough, as I'm looking at the schedule here, ABC is broadcasting a game Saturday afternoon in Fenway. I didn't realize that ABC actually had, I guess, part of an MLB package. I was unaware of that, to be honest with you. And Sunday night, I guess, is probably going to be Yankees, Red Sox on NBC. We know that the NBC schedule, because you had Mets, Phillies last Sunday. I didn't mention that last week. But because between now and the start of the football season, NBC is going to show Sunday Night Baseball, which I like. I like games, have that feel that are not cable, like you pop it on. Listen, a world that we live with streaming. Yeah, Yankees, Red Sox, 7:20 NBC there Sunday night. Carlos Rodon, Sonny Gray. But that is your schedule. And as far as the standings go, people, I mean, am I going to tell you something that you don't already know? 2 in the loss for the Yankees, 3-game lead as they gain a couple of games since Monday. White Sox and Guardians are tied, although the Guardians have 2 games in hand. Oh, excuse me. The White Sox have 2 games in hand, and they're tied at the top there at the same percentage points. Mariners with a 3-game and a loss, 2.5 up on Houston. As most teams are approaching the halfway point. Some already have been there. Marlins are 1. I just mentioned the Guardians are another. They're right at 81. I could kind of do a first half thing on Monday. Now, Braves and Phillies, granted that they just got swept by San Diego, and they've now lost, 5 of 6? No, even more than that. Braves have now lost, because that's right, they lost 2 to the Giants. They've actually lost 7 of 9, where the Phillies are 5 in the loss back and 4.5 back. So that's going to be a race maybe there, which we didn't think at first, considering that the Braves almost had a double-digit lead in the division, where now it's down to 5 in essence. And the Marlins are 7 back, if you believe that, but the Nats 8 back. Then you have Brewers, who are 7 up on the Cardinals and Cubs. So if the Cubs want to do any damage, they got to sweep here. And then the Padres are 9 back, despite San Diego hosting the Dodgers this weekend. where the Dodgers have the best record in the sport. Here at the halfway point, exactly 52-29, so on a pace to win 104 games. So that's your baseball. Now, quickly with the World Cup, and I'll get your comments. Let's see where we're at here. All right. Comments. Yeah, I'll get to them in a minute. World Cup, couple of things. Mexico, 3-0 in their group stage. Now, I understand world-beating teams. I get it. Maybe not the case. Although there was a shock there with South Africa and South Korea. I believe it was wasn't that yesterday, that game? And they shut out Czechia yesterday. They've outscored their opponents 6-0. So they have not given up a goal yet. And I kind of wonder, and you've heard me talk about this even on Monday's podcast, to where the U.S. home country advantage, not even home field, but home country advantage, and the way they perform, they're going to play Turkey tonight out at SoFi. So we'll see if they could do the same, similar to what they did, or to what Mexico did against their opponents. Now, remember, the U.S. team did give up a goal to Paraguay, after them pitching a shutout there in their second game against Australia. But Mexico now, you would have to think, with this historic start to their World Cup, and haven't seen this in the likes in forever, you wonder whether or not that they're kind of feeding off, or maybe even drinking that same Kool-Aid that the American team is drinking, knowing that the games are in their backyard. Obviously, they have a nation that's behind them, pepped up, revved up, ready to go, to where a lot of the fervor and the groundswell of support is now permeated that whole club, to where could they be, maybe not a team of destiny, but could they be a team that may be reckoned with here? I understand it's early to tell. Let's see what we get to the field of 32 and so on and so forth. I understand that. But maybe, just maybe, that this carpet ride that both the Americans and the Mexicans are on, and Canada lost yesterday, so I know that puts a crimp into maybe their plans of trying to be a team that could do something similar to what the U.S. and Mexico have done. But based on what I've seen and read, would I be shocked? I can't say I would. Now, that's not to say they're going to be in a semifinal before you know it, but who knows? If they were in Europe or in Africa, if this, obviously the World Cup was played in another part of the world, that's not to say that they wouldn't have played like this, but I'm sure it has certainly helped to know that they have been, quote unquote, home, and have not have to face the rigors of being away from family, and being, now they're still away from their families, but not to the extent where they're on the other side of the planet and, have to FaceTime at midnight only to get to somebody, at whatever time it may be, 4 p.m, local time, Mexico City, or anywhere in that country. So, listen, am I going to push all my chips in the middle of the table? Yeah, U.S., Mexico, they're going to have this big-time run. Well, they're off to tremendous starts, and I would think a lot of that momentum will pick up. Now, I understand the competition when they start to face stiffer ball clubs, that could change in a heartbeat. But maybe, who knows, with the crowd, the frenzy of their fans following them and making sure that they support them, who knows? Could that carry them on through a match, to the next round, to the next game, etc.? Stranger things have happened. So I'm not going to totally dismiss that. I got to see it. Yeah, there's a part of me that feels that way. But I don't want to be that guy. You know me, I throw cold water on everything. But I don't want to be that guy to say, all right, yeah, let me see them when they have to face a real team. Or let me see them when they have to face a team that is maybe of their ilk. Maybe not the upper class, a la France, Spain, Germany, Argentina, etc. So we shall see. And I know if you're England, I'm sure you're still sick and you haven't slept. With the Harry Kane header that hit the crossbar. Against Ghana, I mean, that was just, and that late in that match too. Oh, my goodness. And then I know you had both Lionel Messi and Ronaldo. Messi, who now I believe has surpassed, did he not? Miroslav Klose of most goals in World Cup play. And then Ronaldo, who a lot of people thought, hey, why is this guy starting? I don't care what type of shape he is. I don't care if he's a Cyborg 1000 or T1000, second coming of the Terminator. He is still 41, and he shouldn't be starting anymore, despite the fact of his iconic status, etc. Well, he just showed everybody up by scoring a goal there. His sixth World Cup, 6 different World Cups that he's actually scored a goal in for Portugal. So let's see if Ronaldo can now get that boost and carry him throughout the rest of this tournament, or as far as they could go. And today, you have a lot of late games. You know, usually have it spread out. You have it 1, 3, but you have 6 games on tap. Ecuador, Germany. You have, why is this not? Yeah, let's see all World Cup. Thank you. Schedule. Where Ecuador, Germany. Now, I should know this a little bit more as far as what this means moving forward, because obviously you get to next week, you have those knockout games, or the knockout round, I should say, when I believe you get to Wednesday. But Curacao, Ivory Coast, Ecuador, Germany today at 4. Those games are at Philadelphia and MetLife, Ecuador, Germany. Japan, Sweden, in Jerry's World down in Dallas. Tunisia, Netherlands, that's at Arrowhead. Paraguay, Australia at Levi's Stadium, and Turkey, United States, SoFi. Both of those games are at 10. And then you have the big one tomorrow, which I'm looking forward to, is Norway and France. And I'm sure you've seen the crowds, Norway, back of the goal with the chants and mimicking the rowing of the, and not the boats or the canoes, whatever. So that should be a match that everybody has their calendar circled. And even me, I definitely want to peep that, and that's going to be in Foxborough. You know, why do they call it Boston Stadium? Listen, I understand you may not want to call it Gillette Stadium. You want to be just bland. Call it Foxborough Stadium. It's not in Boston. This game's not being played at Fenway. I mean, come on. Senegal, Iraq, Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia. And we know Cape Verde and what they've done here so far. Uruguay, Spain, Egypt, Iran, Iran. New Zealand, Belgium. And then Saturday, you have Croatia, Ghana, Panama, England, Colombia, Portugal. That's going to be a game to watch, considering that Colombia, they're going to look to go 3-0, and Portugal, who right now they're going to need to win that game big time in order for them to advance, because obviously the head-to-head, that's important. They lose that, they're going to be in a world of trouble, and I believe they would be out. I got to look at that group, but yeah, that certainly wouldn't bode well if they lose, or even tie for that matter. That is a game that they absolutely positively have to win, and that game's down in Miami. So that is going to be a festive crowd. Saturday night in Miami, Colombians, which you know there's a lot of Colombians that represent down there, and Portugal, whoo, that is going to be a scene. The Congo and Uzbekistan, Algeria, Austria, Jordan, Argentina, and then Sunday you have South Africa, Canada to wrap that up. And then you'll go into Monday, and then you have like the second place group versus Brazil and so on, and we'll get to those matchups at that time. All right, your comments, people. What is this? Hang on, guys. Mayweather fight versus Mike Zambitis called off. I didn't even know this was going on. First, Mayweather was supposed to fight Mike Tyson. We know that got scrapped. Then he's supposed to fight Manny Pacquiao. That got scrapped. And then this Zambitis exhibition fight. I don't even know who Michael Zambitis is, number one. Number two, per court documents. I mean, Mayweather, it might as well fight me at this point. Not that I would be of any match to him, but I think he needs the money in the worst way. If he's fighting guys I never even heard of, I mean, come on. Please, I'll go in there for $100,000. I'll do my best to just try to go and just hold like this, take a few shots, body shots, try not to get to the head. I'll swing here and there. $100,000, why not? I'm sure everybody else would do that. Ay, ay, ay. Floyd, is this what it's come to? I'm not trying to judge this, but yeah. All right, here we go. Comments, everybody. I appreciate everybody who stood tight, hung on. I really do. Here's the comment of the day right here. Waffle Iron Whale, that's my guy. AKA, as recent as Fuqua Johnson, Minnesota Fats, Tatsuya Mai, Rhoda Penmark, Everyday Mets, Jonathan Sean Cup, Cowboy Bull, Dad's Chips. And then, yeah, Terry and Arnold, I know. I mean, these guys can't get out of trouble, man. I mean, I don't know. All right, let's see what we got. Yeah, know about Al Horford. Signed 2 years. Did he sign 2 years? Al Horford signed a 2-year deal. He's 40 years old. And listen, God bless him. I'm not trying to say he should retire, but my guy, Bio, struggling. Whew. My beloved Mets, I'm ready to disown those bastards. Never, but you know what I mean. Win 2 out of 3. Hope to get the sweep. Nice. Yogesh, welcome. I don't know if you're still with us, but thanks for stopping by. Val, don't worry. We'll work this out. Yep. 4 days away. Ron Man, let's go Knicks and Mets. Oh, you're a big Met fan too? Oh, what do you think about my rant? I'm sure you commented, so I'll be sure to check that out. What's up, brother? Your NBA champion is here to listen to give his opinion. Yes, Ray. Thank you so much. Cheers. Shout out. Greetings. Uppy is awesome. Period. All right. Welcome. Or Jalen Brunson. We can talk Brunson if you want. So Charlotte traded Lonzo Ball, LaMelo Ball, and got returned a record-setting $48 million trade exception. Oh, is that what that was? Cheers. H2O. Is that what that was? So they get a $40.8 million trade exception. Wait, trying to sign LeBron? I don't know. And LeBron want to go to Charlotte, but what? So now Charlotte could sign free agents to fill the foot. Right. Just did the last minute live a little bit ago before hopping in here. I got to go back and check on that, Ray. I know. And you've been great. Definitely check out Ray's channel if you haven't gone to his insight breakdown. It's sharp, man. It really is. Yeah, I know Charlotte did sign him. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And Kobe White's a nice player. Amen. But listen, you rather something happened. I don't know what happened in the front office with that. That's just nonsense. This was to clear up a lot of cap space to get a healthier, less hurt, more mentally consistent player. This is not his team. You mean Kneppel? Yeah, but he's a shooter. I mean, that guy's listen, you want to have a guy like that on your team, no doubt, but I didn't mention Austin Reeves. I know he signed an extension 4 years, $185 million. I got to throw that in there. I didn't mention that earlier, which the Lakers had to do. So clear up. But Colin Kneppel just got drafted to clear up cap space for him now. I don't know. To me, something happened between the line or that we don't know of. Kobe White got signed, who will be better, more mature presence. Yeah, I can see that more professional, but they could have got more. It's always been a New York Knicks town. Oh, yeah, when it comes to basketball, that goes for damn sure. And overall, too. Because when the Knicks are bad, people they support them, but obviously they're not really heard for much. Ron, man, I appreciate you. I hope you're still with me here. Thanks for sticking it out. Usually on my Wednesday live stream at 12 noon, it's more of a back and forth. Where here, obviously, I get all my points across, and then I get to the comments. So if you're still with us, thank you so much. And if you haven't subscribed, this is the channel for you, I promise. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate you. And if not, that's fine. You can keep coming back. It's all good. Ain't no more drafting. Drafting is over. Yeah, I know. No, the draft is over. Unless you want to talk NHL. This isn't a knock on you, but I'm on a show and rock with 2 others. But why aren't more people talking about how awesome that we are champs? You're on a show that rock with. What's the name of your show? Should be a month-long talk. The sports world continues to say, hey, listen, if this was a basketball or a Nick podcast, that's a different story. Now, I don't know. What is your podcast? Is it a Nick podcast? Is it basketball? Listen, a week ago today was the parade. I got to talk about other things. You won't say your show man out of respect for you, your platform. Oh, I appreciate that, Ron, man. But no, if you want, please, you can shout it out. But I do respect that. Thank you. And I mean that. But no, I'm curious. I'd be curious to know. And I like what you said. You were respectful, not a knock on me, but I'm on the show, rock with two others. I'm curious to know. I'd want to watch. I want to check it out. When do you think your Celtics? I know they'll work on something. Oh, you mean for Jaylen Brown? I know. I gave you guys all the scenarios, or at least potential scenarios of what they could do. I don't have any insight. Yeah, could they talk to the Hawks? Could they talk to even the Spurs for that matter? The Rockets, although that doesn't make any sense because he and KD, they play the same position for the most part. Unless you're going to put KD at the 4, or unless you're going to put Jaylen Brown as a 2 guard, which you could do, and have Durant at the 3. I mean, other than that, like what, Portland? I mentioned even Portland because they've made trades with the Trailblazers in the past. And you want to give me Denny, I can't pronounce this guy's name, Avdija. You want to throw in Scoot Henderson? You could do that too, but they're not going to do that. The Trailblazers aren't ready to win yet, so. Where's my team? Yeah, it's Val's a Bay Area gal. Why do we connect Junior fell on our lap? The Knicks should have loaded up on centers. Oh, I know the Celtics got him. Yes, absolutely. If that's the play you're referring to. Yeah, I know the Knicks traded out of the first round. Yeah, Fox is in witness protection. Oh, he was awful. Valkyries watched part of the game yesterday. 1, Giants did 2. Val, sorry to hear it. I'll be there. All right, hang on. I like this. At J Reels, a little of everything nice. Yeah, I talk all sports, Ron, man. All. What's that? If healthy Washington will be a problem. Wait, what time is that? 1:52. So you're talking about the Wizards. Yeah, they could be. Absolutely. They definitely could. No, she didn't. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. So do I. Oh, you see it. I know. Now I'm lost because obviously this was talked about, what? Geez, an hour ago? That's not on you. That's on me. And trying to, he says how he feels. Without question. If you couldn't tell by that Met rant, I don't know. Then I don't know what to tell you. And I'm not saying that to anyone specifically. I'm just, don't think San Francisco will sweep the team in MLB this season. That's a good one. I don't know that either. Yeah, I definitely, because after the parade on the podium, that comment was directed toward her. So, yeah, that's right. Thank you. Brunson is A1 or 1A. I know. Hey, listen. She isn't the only one. And I just don't like it that she's the one getting crucified over it. Because there's plenty of other people, I'm sure, probably said worse. Yep, we talked about that. Good riddance, too, because he was awful. And I don't care if he was an all-star last year. I don't care what he did in the 2024 postseason. That's long in my rearview mirror. You know the old song, Janet Jackson. Hey, Mark's back. Why is Ray still on? Ray, come on. Leave Ray alone. Brunson, top 3 player in the league. 4-5 in a closeout. Brunson, top 3 player in the league. All right, Ron, man, let me ask you this. And I get it. He's your guy. You're going to take him, whatever. You say top 3. Who's the other 2 guys are you picking? If I had to take a guess, you'd probably say SGA and Jokic. But then you have to say, would you take Giannis? Now, you got to take a healthy Giannis. I get it. But come on, a healthy Giannis is 30 and 13 in the bank. Brunson is not going to give you 30 and 13. He'll give you 28, maybe 6 or 7 rebounds. And I understand he's a closer. That's rare. And you could throw Wemby in there. And, we just beat Wemby in the finals. But Wemby plays more defense in his right pinky than Brunson does in his whole body. Let's call it as we see it. I understand he's not a guy that is going to rival Brunson offensively. despite him being 7'4", 7'5" from one day to the next. But I know that's why I first picked you up here, Ron, man. All right, I know Becky Ham sandwich. Let's see. We got a low first baseman if we trade him very early in the season. Val B. Ron, man, you're a Met fan. I know you got to be unhappy with this team. Can you not? Most love, great sign. Remember when Luka went down? Brunson helped lead the Mavs drop it. Right, I remember. That was in the playoffs. Was that against Utah? Yeah, you are right. Top guys in the NHL hardly panned out. Nah, that's hit or miss with number one overalls. Yeah, if you want to go way back, Neil Broughton. Do you know that name, Mark Salmons? He was the number one overall pick. Played a long time, and Neil Broughton was on the USA, the Olympic team in 80. But there have been a lot of first-round busts, even in NHL. Lafreniere's not a bust, but that guy, when he came out, Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, everybody thought, oh, watch out for this guy. He's been good, but he hasn't been great. Exactly. Weeping Wemby. I know this was an hour ago, but yep, Macklin Celebrini. He's great. That guy could play on my team. You know, you've hit rock bottom when you got fans chanting for another player that's not, without question. Hey, Nancy, I know you're not here, but thanks for stopping by. Oh, geez. Mark with his comments. Even Val's trying to get back. Well, Val's being nice about it, I think. Just asking a question. Be back in 5 minutes, interested in what you're talking about. Oh, thank you, Ron, man. I appreciate that. Smash the likes, everyone. It's free and helps Jamie. Ron, man. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Ron. He'll be traded soon. You posted that at 2:15. Geez, 45 minutes. There you go, Ray. Don't let the negative energy affect you. Good for you. Listen, Ron, and it's not all his fault, though. I understand he's made some head-scratching moves at times, but he's got to stop putting Mark Vantos at first base, though. I mean, and I get it. He's trying to get him in the lineup, whatever. First time here. I don't know you feel I'm super fanatic Met fan. Well, no, if you're a super Met fan, then great. Even if you weren't, that'd still be fine. Yes, he was cursing the Mets are bipolar. Oh, he was cruising the Mets are bipolar. Oh, they are bipolar. There's no problem with them? What do you mean? Problem with who in particular? I know Semien. Oh, yeah. Oh, don't remind me, Pete, almost 20 homers. By the way, Polanco never played first in his life. I know, he never did. And to take the words out of the great Waffle Iron Horse, a.k.a. Tatsuya Mai, we know the AKAs. He wasn't focused on run prevention. It was more win prevention because, oh, my God. Yeah, they were cheering for Pete, all right. If Swanson only played a Met, forget about it. He'd be in the Hall of Fame. Never met Darling? Mark Salmons. I actually met him. True story. After the 1990 season, I'm in Madison Square Garden sitting in the 300s, center ice. Lisa Grasso, an old friend, and her dad, Lou Grasso. I don't know if hope they're okay, doing well, etc. Between periods, I saw him sitting in the 200s. I went down. This is after Darryl Strawberry, 1990. And I went to him, and he had a little buzz, I could tell. I was like, hey, Ron, big Met fan, blah, blah. Hey, all right, great. Nice. I said, hey, man, tough season. Remember, that was 90. They lost to the Pirates that year. And I asked him, and he was honest. Is Darryl coming back? This was, because Darryl signed, I believe, November 7th, 1990, when he went to L.A., and this was right before that. I went to, what game was that? Went to a Ranger game. It had to be, obviously, it was late October, certainly before November 7th. And when I asked him, I said, is Darryl coming back by any chance? He said, no, he's not. I'm laughing right now. You're welcome on Devin Williams. Oh, jeez. Who knows? You may end up getting Luke Weaver back. He's actually pitched well. Dan Sock, what is happening? Oh, my goodness. That's why I listen. I love everybody. I love Val. I love Ray. I love Bio. I love J-Rod. Shout out to J-Rod, Fishing Angel. Daniel Sock, Toppers. My guy, Victor E. I haven't seen him in a minute. Everybody that drops in on the room, whether throughout, periodically, but Fuqua, you hit around that, or Waffle Iron. If it's me, hell no. And I don't want to, what are they going to show? A couple of strikeouts against the Phillies there in the Division Series 2 years ago? Or because he was the longest tenured Met, first round pick 2017? Or because he was an all-star last year, which was fool's gold because in the second half of last year, he bottomed out? He better not get a tribute. Not in my eyes. But he probably will. Yes, they are. I can't say enough about what they've done. Although I'm not in love with your bullpen would scare me in the postseason. And Rodon, too. Although Rodon would right now, when you think about it, yeah, I'd have to start Cole game. Would you start Cole game one or Schlittler game one? I don't think they'd start Schlittler game one. If they have home field, I think it would be Cole. Ooh. They probably want to go righty-lefty. If Max Fried is healthy. I'd have Schlittler pitch at home game one or game two. You got to put Cole there. Schlittler. Then you want to throw Fried, Rodon, two lefties back-to-back in 3 and 4, and then Cole 5. I guess that's how you do it. Yep, Ray's a Yankee fan. You cannot stop laughing at my rant. I call like I see it, brother. I'm not going to say, oh, it's a tough season, and I wasn't expecting this. Hell no. But I do that for any team. All my teams, what do we got here? Semien. Oh, Waffle Iron. If he does, I'll die laughing. Oh, no. Oh, is that right? Could I go out there for a tryout? I mean, really? I can't be any worse than what we've seen here over the last 5 games. Uh-oh, what is this? MLB, what is this? MLB wants maximum 5-year deals for free agent changing teams. Oh, that's an NBA deal. As part of the next collective bargaining agreement with players, Major League Baseball wants a maximum contract length of 5 years for free agents who are switching teams, while organizations will have the ability to keep their own players for up to 6 years, calling it a cornerstone player provision. Or in this case, who's down with CPP? And the players are saying, you know, not me. Players don't want that. Players want 10, 12, 14-year deals. But you know what? That would be the best. I love it. Now, I can read into this a little bit more. So, for example, for a free agent moving teams this upcoming offseason could sign a maximum contract of 5 years, $202 million. A team retaining its own free agent could sign it for 6 years, $265. That's similar to the NBA, where a team could sign their own player 5 for whatever, 280. But if they go to another team, it's 4 for a little less than that. Oh, wait a minute. I may have that mixed up. Is it 4 and 3? But yeah, they're trying to incorporate exactly what the NBA is doing. And you know what? I'm for it. Get this thing right. And the players, I'm sure, you know my comments. I'm sure right now in locker rooms, there's people, taping up their legs or putting on their pants and go to BP. They're looking on their phones, taking a sip of Gatorade. They spit that out across the room looking at that thing. Listen, if you want the sport to be healthy and whole, they have to do that. But the players, Paul O'Neill was great on Yankees. Hal Morris was originally a Yankee. That you're right. And what was Paul O'Neill's original team? I'm sure you know that one, Mark Sammons. Won a World Series. Played on the team, Hal Morris. who was at first base and in the lineup. Yep, crazy. Yankees, Red Sox, 4 games. Oh, is that a back? Oh, there's a wraparound series? They play Monday too? If I said 3 is my error. Hey, what's up? Can you reply on chat because my headset's not working? Oh, Rosie, yes. That was a while ago. I hope Cohen learns how to defer. Rosie, I'll get back to you. Hang on. I hope Cohen learns how to defer contracts like the Dodgers. Well, I don't know. This new CBA, they may have a deal where they can't have multiple deferred payments when it comes to contracts. That's a loophole that they're able to exercise and work to their advantage. And that's why I kid it right, Ron Man. That's why Bobby Bonilla Day, which is this coming Wednesday, I don't want to hear that. That Bobby Bonilla Day is over. And people say, but that's the original. That's the OG deferred payment. Yeah, it is, but that's over. Because the Dodgers are going to have a Shohei Ohtani Day, a Blake Snell Day, a Roki Sasaki Day, I believe Yoshinobu Yamamoto Day. I mean, come on. It's NBC because Peacock's always up. Yeah, no, yes, that I'm aware. Dodgers. Baseball games will air on ABC this year. Yankees face Red Sox 1 p.m. Now, why didn't I know that? I knew NBC. I knew about Netflix with the 3 games. They're doing the home run derby, which is going to be a joke. They're going to have Jameis Winston there. Come on. Yeah, I didn't realize they're on ABC. I should have known that. Is this going to bump me? Hold on. Even without the headset. Let's see. Ron Acuna Jr. is out. Not out for the season. That can't be true. Is that out for the season? I did not hear that. South Africa beating Korea. Yes, it was. Big time. I agree there, Waffle Iron. I'm thinking about doing a watch along Yankees Red Sox. Oh, which game? Tomorrow night? And loose on my wallet and bio. Mexico, the next game will be around 32. Mexico has tickets to talk about. Yo, yeah. That's gonna be raucous. The only team that can save the New York Mets, I'm not playing any more games until October. I'm talking. Wait, the only team that could save the Mets. Oh, I'm not playing anymore until October. Yeah, but here's the thing, Ray. Because the Knicks, obviously winning a championship, parade, the whole 9, there's no other team that could save it. It's not as if the Jets and Giants are playing this Sunday, where everybody's going to focus in on the football. They are exposed. Yankees are playing well. Right now, the focus of New York sports, sadly, is the Mets because they're going to want to see what's going to happen. Dave Peterson gets traded. I didn't talk about that because I just went on the rant. I'll talk about that Monday, whether or not this is the beginning of the end with Peterson gone. But they should start selling. I mean, come on. Definitely Val, like Chase Energy. Yeah, Val's a great sport. First time seeing him, I subscribed. Oh, thank you, Ron, man. I appreciate that. And yeah, I'm curious to know about your show, man. Please. Yeah, you did say that, Mark. You asked me about that. And yeah, I don't know what's going on with him. Now, if I'm with you, I'd fight for him 50 grand. Oh, yeah. Mayweather. I mean, geez. He's in an exhibition with a guy that I couldn't even, again, he could have walked through this door with black eyes, boxing gloves. I'd be like, who the hell is this guy? And no offense to the guy, but I mean, please. Mets are my absolute favorite team. Oh, no, I hear you. Mets are your first. The Mets are my first love, too. Oh, good to know you're here. Even though that was, 20 minutes ago, I'm still catching up on these comments. Did Mark Salmons leave? He says I'll leave the entire channel alone. Why? Because I'm not posting your comments? I mean, Mark, I'm not doing that. I'm acknowledging the other stuff. The Paul O'Neill, Hal Morris. Oh, no, Zach, I'm not going to totally ignore you. I won't. But I'm not posting. I'm not doing that. I've always considered Steve May said the fake New York Knicks fan. I don't care whether he apologized or not. Yeah, you know what it is about Stephen A. I know what you mean by that. And what bothers me, because I knew that was going to happen. What bothers me about Stephen A is that he flip-flops so much. It's disgusting. I know it's for ratings or what. It's come on. Like, have some integrity. Stick to what it is that you're talking about. Give me a second. Yeah, I just hate the flip-flop. And I will say this. I know Jaylen Brown came out and said that ESPN and Stephen A. Smith's unethical. That's a little strong, but I kind of know what he means by saying that, because I almost get the sense that Stephen A. says maybe not outlandish stuff. First of all, he repeats himself all the time. Just even watching like these 2-minute clips talking about, Jaylen Brown, finals MVP, conference finals MVP, second team. We know about that. You don't have to tell us that. I know there are times I bring that up too, so I can't front, but he does that repeatedly. And yeah, he says like the most outlandish stuff sometimes. And to me, it's just him to rage bait or just for clickbait. It's like, come on, be real. Man, I love it. I know I love a debate. I love to sit across from anybody. It's that, man, you don't want to sit across from me. I'm not trying to make myself out to be whatever, but still, because some of the things he says, and just like he'll come out, the greatest shooter that God's ever created. I'll be like, Stephen A., we know that already. You don't have to, please. We know. Or SGA, it's Shea Butter. I'll take Shea Butter. Stop. What is this? Blue and Orange Tears, fully, which is Knicks New York Met Lounge. Oh, that's your show? Well, I got news for you, Ron, man. And I'm not, listen, maybe I shouldn't say this. You heard my Met rant. You want somebody to talk about the Mets? I'll just leave it at that. I'm 57 years old. I've been watching this team, following this team since 1973. I don't know how old you are. I go way back with this team. The Mets are my first love. Baseball is my first love. The Mets are my first love. So, yeah, I would still act like this. What you saw, whether it was with the Celtics, whether it's the Islanders, whether it's the Steelers, Georgetown Hoyas, but the Mets, thank you, Mark. You hope the channel blows up but out. Actually, hope channel blows up but out. Should I take that as a compliment? I know you've been complimentary towards the channel before, but I don't know. The manager can only manage sometimes. You got to blame the players, and you know I'm right. The manager can only manage sometimes. You got to hold the players accountable. And Mendoza doesn't do a good job of that either, I might add. And I know it's got to be frustrating for your manager because he doesn't call out anybody. He's too buddy-buddy with his players. And that's why, to me, I don't want to make this out to be an Aaron Boone thing, whatever, but Aaron Boone in a big spot, especially in the playoffs, scares the life out of me. Because I'm going to keep doing my thing. Hey, do it. Keep doing it, Ray. Next month, I'm walking from the few, I won't say their names, chopping it up with Chosen and Friends. All right, chopping it up with Chosen and Friends. Let me see that. Yeah, I'm going to peep it. Oh, did I misspell that? I didn't see that. And what was the other one you had? The Blue Orange Tears? Yeah, I'm going to leave that there. I'll go back to that. Yeah, I definitely want to peep that. It'll be a lot like what you're doing, which is why I've stayed the whole time. All right, but definitely not identical. I mean multi-topics. Yeah, because to me, I don't let me ask you, is your show more of a debate show? Or is it more of, because to me, I talk about topics, games, whatever, but I also got to give you my opinion. Because if I was just to sit here to be, oh, the Mets have lost 5 games in a row and they gave up 50 runs in the last 5 games and they traded Dave Peterson. And, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next with the team. We'll have to wait and see. People are going to jump ship. I mean, what's this guy talking about? He just gave me a rundown of what happened, but how does he feel about it? But that could be the same, even if it was the Braves that lost 7 in a row. I know the Braves lost 7 of 9, but I didn't want to belabor that. They're still in first place. Now, if they blow that lead, then I could say, what the hell's going on with the Braves? So on and so forth. But, yeah, because you got to have something to back it. You just can't. Just like I did with – if I came on here and I started this show talking about LaMelo Ball and saying, wow, the Minnesota T-Wolves got LaMelo Ball, and – that backcourt with Anthony Edwards is going to be electric and so on and so forth, whatever, blah, blah. But no, to me, the bigger thing is, why did they trade LaMelo Ball? I'm not trying to make this guy out to be, name any point guard you want. You know, Nate Archibald, Pete Maravich, or whatever. But I'm sorry. If I'm going to come out here and go, wow, they traded LaMelo Ball, that was a shock today. I wasn't expecting that. All right, now on to the next thing. No. Yes, indeed. Great. Oh, you remind me of me and my cousin. Oh, I could be wrong, but Italian? Not that it matters. No, I'm not Italian, but I appreciate that. I'm catching up with these comments. I'm about 9 minutes away. All right, here we go. I forgot about Kyle Tucker. He's also on that list too. A Tucker Day, Bonilla Day made us look dumb, but he was smart and innovative at the time. I know, and they're paying him to what, 2033, I think it is? Or maybe it's 31. Hold on. I should know this, but to me, it's like, because I got sick of the Yankee fan getting, oh, bye, Bonilla Day. Like, come on, stop. Yeah, bye, Bonilla Day is an unofficial baseball holiday celebrated every July 1st. I do not celebrate that, but okay. We'll pay him $1.19 million. Oh, I said 2031. No, I said 2031. I said, no, it's 2033. That's a lie. 2035. He's got 9 more years after this year. That's all right, because when they come out and say, bye, Bonilla Day, I'm going to put Happy Kyle Tucker Day. Yes. Bio, I know, is always on top of it. Bio, what do you think about that? Sorry, so long-winded and writing full block. Nah, don't worry about that. Rob, man, speak your mind. I can care less about the suit. Stephen Naismith is a go where the wind blows. Yeah, come on. Hey, Rob, what's up, man? Welcome back. I appreciate that. You said no outs. Okay, so you think the channel is all right. That's how you feel today? To answer your question, I think, and yes, I love the Knicks, but Jaylen Brown deserves a nod. And look at MVP. So when I say JB is the best there are other JBs like Brown who is great. Yeah. And that was my argument. Last week, I got a lot of people got at me, especially on Instagram. And I still haven't followed up with them, which I'm going to follow up with. People say, oh, this guy can't even pick top 5 players are better than Brunson, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I made the example. When Jaylen Brown won Conference Finals MVP and Finals MVP 2 years ago, was anybody putting him in the top 5 of the NBA? Nobody. Not even me. And I believe it was second team All-NBA. And everybody got crazy over what I said as if it was an insult to not put Brunson in the top 5. And not to go down that road again, and I'm trying not to whatever, but that's like me saying, and let me see how you feel about this. I know this is always a lightning rod, and my apologies to the bios and people who have been down this road with me before. And again, I don't know how old you are, Ron, man. If you're in your mid to, I could say if you're somewhere in your 20s or 30s, you're probably going to say yes to this. But in my eyes, Draymond Green, and I hate to go down, but he's not a Hall of Famer. I'm a small room guy. I'm a guy who's dominant, whatever, so on and so forth. And that's all there is to it. So when I think of top 5 players in the NBA, and it's not to say Jalen Brunson isn't dominant. We know in the fourth quarter closer, he's phenomenal. No shade towards Jalen Brunson, any way, shape, form, zero. But I'm taking 5 other players before I take Jalen Brunson if I had a draft. That's it. That's it. I'm not saying Jalen Brunson doesn't belong in the top 10 or your opinion. If you believe he's the 3rd best player, the 1st best, that's fine. I'll disagree, but I'm not going to say, oh, you're crazy, you're nuts, you don't know what you're talking about. No. And I get it. It's subjective, it's opinionated, whatever. End of story. That's why people, oh, Steph Curry's not in your top 10. You don't know anything about basketball. I say, what? Come on. You're absolutely right. My manager frustrates the heck out of me. Yeah. Bad word, though. Listen, Mark. How I look at it is, I don't know what. It's not a matter of me like sticking up for people. I just don't like the negative energy. They're back and forth. I just don't like that. I understand you're going to say what you're going to say, and I can't control what you're going to say or what you're not going to say. And I do take what you've said towards me to heart as far as the channel and as far as whatever. I appreciate that. I really do. But I'm not going to curse at you or block you or whatever. I mean, come on. And even if you wanted to attack me, if you want to make it personal about me, I'll just, obviously I'm not going to post those comments and I could take it, but I'm not going to show it. And if that bothers you, then I don't know what to tell you. I'm just not going to do that. And that goes for anybody, anyone that says F you to this person or, no, I'm not posting it. I'm going to ignore it. Oh, you're 50. Oh, that's it. That's good to know. Met fan forever. My show will be a lot like this, but the others are talking debate, fully letting who's talking to talk. The next show will be like this. Calls also. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, to me, the reason why I do, well, not that you asked, but I do this type of show because there aren't many, at least from what I gather, there aren't many platforms that I see that are like mine. It's a talk show format of what's gone on in sports and what lies ahead, obviously with opinions. I interact. I started doing these lives maybe in the last couple of months. What I used to do was record it and then post it. But then I thought, oh, let me start doing lives. And it's helped tremendously for my channel in particular because I need the watch hours. And at first I was going to scrap doing lives and go back to recording, but I figured, I've gotten a lot more traction. People have jumped on board, whatever. Guys like you, Ron, man, I appreciate that. So it's a thing where it's like, I'm going to continue this format. And I sprinkle in a couple other things. I've gone like on the street interviews, which I got to start doing some more of, and I plan to do more of, and more commentary videos, things of that nature. So I want to sprinkle and mix it up, but it all revolves around sports. Some of it is, I don't want to say motivational stuff or whatever, because I want everybody to get theirs. And that's why I'm curious to know about your show. And I know you posted it and I marked it down. But yeah, I don't want it to be a thing where it's like, oh, well, it's my show and forget about everybody else. So, but no, it's good. Waffle Iron. I see your comment there. Ray, I'll keep it 100 with you. We can agree to disagree. Oh, of course. 100%. One thing I never do is the back and forth with people. I'm nothing but positivity, even my rant. When you say the back and forth, what do you mean? Just like arguing? Oh, yeah, no. Well, this is what I'll say to that. I think I know where you're going with that last comment. Anytime that I have an opinion on something, whether it's a team that I don't like, and Ray knows this too, and I love Ray. I'll still pay you when you can't drama. What drama are you dealing with? Is somebody attacking you that I don't know of? Now, if somebody's attacking you, Mark, I'll say that. Now, listen, I understand. Well, I'll say this. I know that Waffle Iron did make a comment, which I didn't post out of respect. I read it to myself, and obviously everybody in the room could see it, but I didn't want to post it on screen. So again, just because you may say something about somebody else doesn't mean that, oh, look what so-and-so said about you, Mark. No, I'm not doing that. But other than that, to the people, to the ones that I know you've gotten after here, what have they said to you that has gotten you upset or have caused drama? And I appreciate that. I do, Mark. I do. But going back to this comment, Ron Man. Now, Ray knows this. If there's one team on the planet that I would never, ever, ever root for, and there's a few, but one in particular, and you're 50 years old and you're a Met fan, so I'm sure we're in the same boat. I will never root for the Yankees. Never have, never will. And I live in the Bronx. I'll put that out there. And I've lived in the Bronx just about my whole life. And that's even more of an anomaly. You think, well, how do you live in the Bronx? You don't root for the Yankees. Or never have. Or never will. I'm a Met fan. End of story. So with that being said, there isn't anything that I will say about the Yankees that is going to be personal to anybody that's watching live or not. Because as I like to say, whatever it is that I have to say about your team that's opinionated or factual, it's always business, never personal. I will never attack anybody personally in regards to their team, whatever. Or listen, you're a Yankee fan. Well, you're a Yankee fan for 5 minutes or 50 years. 5 minutes I wouldn't like because I'd be like, oh, you just jumped on the bandwagon, especially if you're of a certain age. That's besides the point. But my thing is that if you're not going to respect my opinion, you could disagree with it 100%, and that's fine. But if you're not going to respect and be here in that space to be like, hey, we're just sports fans bantering back and forth, then we're cool. But if you're going to come out, oh, F you, Jay Reels, you don't know what you're talking about, or F you and your Mets, whatever, like, seriously, this is where we're going to go? That I can't tolerate. You know how my struggle was? Mom encouraged me to talk about sports and started doing videos because she knows how much. Yes, Ray. And you do excellent. I started that recording, then people reached out to me, raised my face up. I do have a business partner who's on Sirius Radio. We'd love to chop it up with you for sure. Oh, yeah, let's talk. Absolutely. Ron Man, if you want to get at me, my email, the jreelspodcast@gmail.com, or follow me Instagram, TikTok, or let's say Instagram, either Jay Reels, the name I go by, or the Jay Reels Podcast. Hit me up. Yeah, because just so you know, I do this full time. And I'm trying to generate revenue, all that. And I've been doing this now well over I've had my podcast 8 years, but I've been doing this well over 2 years. So you want to talk? And here's this. I know bio. Listen, I want to post this when he says I've been rocking with Jay Reels for almost 3 years. You guys can read that in the room. I'm not going to post that up on the thing. But if you see what bio wrote, that's all you need to know. The first sentence. And I'm not going anywhere. Sports is in my blood and the DNA. And I know I'm like trying to almost sell you here, Ron Man. Or maybe I call you Chosen. But if you want to talk offline, let's do it, man. Especially when we're almost adults in here. Yes. What do I always tell you if you did? Yes. I know, Ray. Val wearing the Matt Chapman jersey. I was born in the Bronx. My grandfather. Oh, is that right? My grandfather was in that team system. I guess the Yankees. But his position filled by super duper first baseman star. Wait, your grandfather was in that team system, but his position was filled by a super duper first base star. So if you're my age and your grandfather was in that system, super duper star. Now, we're not going back. You're not going as far back as Lou Gehrig. Let me think. If you're because then my grandfather, he's no longer with me or with us. My grandfather is, or would have been. You know what? Maybe you're talking about Lou Gehrig, I guess. Yeah, because my grandfather would have been close to 100. Let me think about that because my dad's 77. Oh, anyway, but no, you must be thinking about that. Is it Lou Gehrig? It's got to be Lou Gehrig then. Instagram. Oh, I appreciate that, Chosen. Oh, you want me to call you Chosen, Ron Man? I don't know. Either one. If you ever root for the Yankees, I would have to take you to the hospital. Oh, you see, Ray knows. Exactly. Adult, so you're already an adult, Val. 21 is 18, really, when you think about it. But 20, if you could drink, you're an adult. And not to say you do, or would I encourage that, but Draymond Green punches people, Jay Reels, yes. He's a Michigan State man. Maybe he's from Michigan, too, I should say. I got to take that back. All right. Yeah, Jay, Chosen. Also, Ron Man, the Chosen one. Yeah, Ron Man, the Chosen. I got to look that up, man. Oh, you know what? Send me all your info on Instagram as far as the podcast, or whatever it is, even your channel, you, etc. We'll definitely connect there. And I'm glad you passed by, Ron. Ron Man. Yes, Lou. Wow, interesting. So your grandfather was in the Yankee farm system, but of course the Iron Horse was there, and obviously we know about Wally Pipp. All right, guys. Let me start landing this sucker. Anything else pop up here? Yeah, because I got some plans later this evening. I got to go meet the wife downtown. Thanks for I had the late start today. She was here, then she had to go downtown. I'm meeting up with her later on with a couple of friends. So I got to start letting sucker. Then I got a couple of things I need to do with the podcast before I head out. But with that being said, let me start to land this plane. That'll do it, my good people. Another episode just about in the books. As always, thank you so much for stopping by, carving out precious time out of your day to listen to what it is I have to say about what goes on in the toy department of life known as sports. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube at J Reels, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the J Reels Podcast. Throw me a few stars, write a review just to increase the visibility of this channel, of the podcast platforms, or whichever podcast platform that you subscribe to. Because, as I've said throughout the course of this pod, independent sports talk, true, passionate, no filler, no artificial ingredients, no clickbait, no rage bait, none of that. So if you could do that, I would sincerely appreciate it. And if you want to hit me up on any socials, you could do that. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the J Reels Podcast, or J Reels on Instagram. Twitter, JReels1 the number. Twitch, JReels1 the number. The old-fashioned way, the JReels Podcast at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals, because whether you do or do not know, I see your comment, Ron. I'll get to that in a second. This is what I love to do. In the blood, in the DNA, talking sports is birthed. And as long as I sit in front of this microphone and camera, I promise I will deliver nothing but passion, fire, energy, fury with my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that happens on the world of the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. From my lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, from wham to wherever you are, the J Reels Podcast always comes correct, direct, and in full effect. From the South Bronx to South Beach to South Central to South Pacific and all points beyond, peace, love, and God bless everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Enjoy the weekend. We'll reconnect here Monday, 11 a.m., back to the normal time. Thanks for taking the time to hop on here in the early afternoon or late morning, depending on where you're at. And until next time on the J Reels Podcast, on the flip, baby. All right, now, Ron Man, hang on. Draymond isn't wait. You know how many arguments I've gotten into over this? And I get it. Everybody's going to be, whatever. Oh, but he's won 4 rings. So what does that mean? Oh, but he was a big part of that team. Yeah, I understand that. Oh, but he says, I get it. And yes, he's a very good defensive player. He's won Defensive Player of the Year. Has been on all NBA teams. Defense, great. But to me, with the Hall of Fame, Ron, and just so you know, you got to be dominant. I get it. Consistency helps. I get it. If you're 20 years. Oh, let me ask you this. Here's another one, Ron. I got one for you. You're around my age. And I asked this to Bio, and Bio says the same thing. Bio's around our age, too. Is Craig Biggio a Hall of Famer? Smash likes for this good brother. Also hit those hundreds. I appreciate that. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Ron. Yes, Bio. Great sports day to you. You know it. Believe me, bro, with 2 P's. Yes, I like it. Hey, we're all kindred spirits here. We are all kindred spirits. And yeah, if you could tell me if you think Craig Biggio's a Hall of Famer, and if you think he is, that's fine. Well, I'll have to disagree, and I'll explain why. And then I'll sign off because I got to start getting ready. Yes, Ron, man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Big time. Let me see. Anything else happening here? Sports? I know today's great between LaMelo Ball and MLB with this proposal. Max 5 years changing teams. What else? Yeah, I'll get to the comment. Hang on one second. That's all right. Biggio, you went, no, yes. You are absolutely correct. But no, I got what you meant. Thank you, Val. No, I got what you meant. Listen, so obviously there's no need to explain, but I get into arguments with kids or kids, people younger than me. When I tell them I'm a small room guy, and but he had 3,000 hits. Oh, but he's the all-time hitter and leading hitter or leading hit leader in Astros history. When I really start breaking out the numbers, and then when I say, yes, I will, Ron, absolutely. And I appreciate you sticking with me throughout this whole 2 hours. Thank you so much. And just so you know, I'm on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays live, 11 a.m., Monday and Thursday. Today, I actually had it postponed for personal reasons. And then 12 noon on Wednesdays. I'm thinking about doing a night live stream as well, but we'll wait and see. That's right. Compilers, no. I'm with you. Dominance. I tell people all the time, the one guy that I think should be a Hall of Famer and will never be in a Hall of Fame because he was dominant as hell, give me Albert Bell's numbers against anybody out there. I understand no 3,000 hits. I understand not 500 home runs. I understand. But boy, those numbers and the black type by his names, by his numbers. Oh, no, Ichiro's a full Hall of Famer. Absolutely. And you can say, he was a single hitter, but come on. I mean, the guy was excellent outfielder, led the league in hits, actually had the most hits in season. More than what George Sisler, I believe, had that record. You know it. Yes, we will talk. Much love, everybody. Thank you so much again for stopping by. Yeah, Joey Bell, of course. You already know. Absolutely. All right, Ron. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody else who joined, hopped on. You too, Mark Sammons. Absolutely. Waffle Iron, Bio, everybody. Till next time, Val, Ray, on the flip.